Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Seminole County Board of County Commission meeting on Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. It is now 9:30. If you'd be kind enough to silence your cell phones, any other electronic devices that you may have. We are going to start with the invocation by Pastor Bob Melhorn from the Integrity Church of Orlando, and then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Herr. Please rise.
Good morning, all. Let's pray. Holy One, what a blessing it is to live in Seminole County. We understand that the whole universe speaks of your glory, that other lands have blue skies and other places are fine places to live as well, but it is a blessing to make this our home. And Father, many people are discovering this, and this becomes a blessing that's not without challenges. For people move here and strain the schools and the roads and the infrastructure. And so we would ask for wisdom for our civic leaders as they confront the many questions and opportunities that are presented to us. We ask your blessing upon our commissioners and their families. We ask your blessing upon the county employees, upon all who make their home here. We ask your protection for the first responders, for the sheriff and the deputies, and for the firefighters. And Lord, as we lift all this up to you, we are mindful that we live in an interconnected world and that there are even bigger issues out there. So we pray for food for all who are hungry. We pray for peace for all who are in danger. And we pray for all to come to know your great name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Melhorn. We appreciate that very much and spending your valuable time and coming down here and blessing this meeting for us today. And thank you, Commissioner Herr, for leading us in the pledge. Next up is going to be our consent agenda. If anybody is here to speak on consent agenda items, there are forms out in the lobby. You will fill out whether you want to speak or make a written comment. You will give them to the clerk, Dominique, right down here with her hand up, and we'll get that scheduled up. We will now ask the county attorney to read the rules for public participation on the consent agenda.
Good morning, everyone. Florida law provides that members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the Board of County Commissioners, except when the board is acting on emergency or ministerial matters or conducting a meeting exempt from the requirements of the Sunshine Law. Individuals shall be permitted 3 minutes each for public comment or 6 minutes when the individual is an official representative of a formal association or group. The chairman may modify the maximum time for public comment at his sole discretion when appropriate. Public comments on quasi-judicial or other public hearing items will occur during the board's consideration of those items this afternoon. Public comments on pending procurement matters or on non-agenda items shall not be permitted at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. County Manager, any revisions to the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just 2 items that I would like to pull. Item number 8, we're going to pull that and bring that one back, as well as item number 11.
Number 8 and number 11.
And that's all.
Very good. Dominique, is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the consent agenda?
No, sir.
We'll close public participation and go to the board. Does any of the commissioners have anything they desire to pull? Commissioner Lockhart.
For clarification and potential modification, item number 7.
Number 7. Any of the other commissioners desire to pull any of the items? Seeing none, Commissioner Lockhart, you have the floor.
Okay. Working with Alan Harris a little bit over the weekend and the county manager yesterday, talking about some of the language in this agreement, Alan has explained the purpose of the training, and I certainly support the work that intends to be done. However, there are 2 areas of this agreement that give me pause. Both are on page 2 in section 4, A and B. Dogs playing for life's responsibilities include providing instructors to work with and supervise county staff. And I don't feel comfortable having a nonprofit organization that is not, we don't know really who these people are. Alan probably does, someone does. But I'm uncomfortable with anyone outside of this organization being given the authority to supervise county staff. So I would like to have supervised be stricken, providing instructors to work with county staff and county volunteers to construct safe and effective dog play groups. That's my first request for modification. My second request for clarification is in B, where the county's responsibilities are to make its employees and volunteers available for this instruction, providing data to Dogs Playing for Life and completing a follow-up survey, completely reasonable. The next sentence is where I would like to see further understanding. Additional data may be requested by Dogs Playing for Life and shall be provided by county after conclusion of the term during follow-up periods, which is in quotes in the contract. So I don't know what the follow-up periods are. I don't know what the additional data may be. It just felt nebulous to me, and I just want to hammer this down a little bit more before we agree to work with this group.
So is it your desire to have the county attorney review it and with animal services and get it nailed down, or are you advocating we dictate from here how the language should be and work that all through this morning?
So Alan can advocate for himself and his team on the timing of this.
Sure. Alan Harris, Director of Emergency Management Animal Services. I agree with the Commissioner. If we could replace the word supervise with train. The organization is coming in to train our staff on the processes of this enrichment program for dogs. I know some of the commissioners have actually had some communication with Florida Living Leaders in Life Saving and the Humane Society up in Jacksonville. This is where that organization does most of their work across the state of Florida. They also do work. So this group is very well known in the animal welfare industry and has benefited a lot of shelters have benefited from the program. So if you wouldn't mind replacing supervise with train. So they're just going to train our staff, county staff and volunteers to construct safe and effective dog play groups. And then on B, I agree, we can strike the second sentence totally.
So I'm comfortable with changing supervise to instruct, and I am very comfortable with striking additional data may be requested and shall be provided after conclusion of the term during follow-up periods.
Perfect.
Commissioner, if you're comfortable with those changes, I'd be prepared to make the motion. Unless there's...
I'm fine. Is this a time-sensitive?
It is. It takes us a while. Unfortunately, it took us a while to get the MOU together, and we have to get on their calendar. And even though we had to postpone this a couple times,
Sure. Okay, got it.
Next available time would be July, August. So we're trying to
Got it.
boost adoption as quickly as possible.
It's time-sensitive, understood.
Yeah.
Any other comments from any of the commissioners? Seeing none, Commissioner Lockhart, if you're ready for your motion.
Yep. Commissioners, I move item number 7 with the modification in section 4A, striking the words "and supervise" and replacing with "train." And in item 4, section 4B, striking the second sentence entirely, additional data may be requested and shall be provided after conclusion of the term during follow-up periods.
Second.
Got a motion and second by Commissioner Herr. Any further dialogue?
Mr. Chairman, just want to thank Commissioner Lockhart for pointing this out. Well done.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Delory.
I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agendas items 1 through, give me a second here, through 27, excluding 8 and 11, and 7, because we've already done 7.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
That's not right.
That's not,
So
it's 1 through 24.
It's 1 through 6, 9 through 10, and 12 through 24.
Okay. I said 1 through 24, excluding 8, 11, and 7.
That's what I said. That's correct.
Okay, that'll work.
And I second it.
That's what I-
Second.
If I didn't say that, I'm sorry.
Any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. Thank you all very much. We'll now get into our regular agenda item. This is item 2024-0344, bar 24-042, approve and authorize the chairman to execute a fiscal year 23-24 mid-year budget amendment resolution. Mr. Jex?
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Timothy Jex with the Office of Management and Budget. Item number 25 is our annual mid-year budget amendment, or BAR, to carry forward countywide fund balances. This item was advertised on Thursday, April 4th in the Orlando Sentinel. The primary purpose of the BAR is to carry forward unexpended fund balances from last fiscal year 23 and reconcile them with current FY24 budgets. The balances in this amendment are based on actual fund equities reported in the 2023 annual comprehensive financial reports. This first slide shows the causes of the amendment. So we had total fund balance adjustments of $52.2 million, which represents 3.2% of the total countywide budget. The largest adjustment is related to interest income earned in 2023. Typically, the county earns between $8 and $10 million annually in interest income. This dropped to about $2 million in 21 and 22 as interest rates fell. So the 23 budget, we had $3 million for interest income budgeted. We actually earned about over $30 million, so $28 million of the adjustment is related to interest. The next piece is related to personnel lapse. We had about $7 million, which is 4.5% of our countywide $156 million personnel budget. And finally, in our enterprise funds, we had a slightly higher than average mid-year adjustment due to some projects that were not carried forward on the carry forward BAR that was approved 2 months ago. We had fund balances associated with those projects. They weren't carried forward, so now we're carrying forward those fund balances. So those are the purposes of the amendment. This is where the funds will be going. We have $4.2 million going into our general fund reserves, which will bring the total reserves in that fund up to $59.6 million. Our enterprise funds increases include water, sewer, solid waste, and our landfill closure funds. We have $7 million going into our penny sales tax reserves, which will bring the total reserves in that fund to about $14 million. Special revenues include grants, MSBUs, impact fee funds, and donation funds. And finally, for this report, we grouped other smaller adjustments for funds like transportation trust, building, tourism, fire, and our self-insurance funds. A detailed list of all adjustments by funds are in your backup reports. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Jex. Any inquiries from the board? Commissioner Herr?
I just want to point, first of all, that's a lot of good news. Some of the holdover is not so great news, but the interest is certainly fabulous news. But I do want to point out that that personnel lapse number at 4.5% is significantly lower than it's historically been. That's a great thing in terms of we're filling roles, but that also becomes an area of the budget where we cannot rely to find funding for things that happen in the middle of the year, which the county has been doing for years and years. So we had a discussion during briefing about it, and I questioned it, and the answer was, why, yes, it's been closer to 10 over the years. And so I thought I'd bring it up just for awareness.
Anyone else? To Commissioner Herr's point, I agree completely, and it also is a byproduct of cleaning up that role of open positions through the years that have stayed stagnant, which benefits getting that all cleaned up to where it should be. Dominique, is there anyone here that desires to speak on this issue?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Look direction to the board. Commissioner Herr?
I'll move to approve the BAR as submitted.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Herr, second by Commissioner Constantine. Any further dialogue? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. Next, we'll move to our work sessions. Dashboard work session, which will be presented by Andrea Westner-Bronner, Chief Innovation and Strategic Initiatives Chiefs Officer, and James, and I always slaughter this, Smith. Chief Information Officer, this is item 2024-0439, and you have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners and Comptroller.
You're honest, that's good.
We have arrived at Dashboard Day, so we're very thrilled to show you the prototype and walk through a framework where we're seeking your suggestions and things that you would like to see in the dashboard. We've had a really wonderful time, I would say, working with a lot of our staff on how these tools could help them do their job, and so we look forward to continued conversations with the whole team. All right. So very quickly, we did benchmark many other counties and cities around America, and I know some of you had called out that the mayor of Jacksonville had very recently and timely had also put out some dashboards. One of the things I'll point out is that those are very forward-facing and really exclusively for, I would say, public consumption, while a lot of things that we're going to show you today are tools and dashboards we'd love to use internally. And so what we've put in the prototype, these are some of the major features that we wanted to walk through with you all today, is again, can't stress enough that this would be initially focused for our internal use, whether it's for you all, the rest of the county manager's team, and then our department directors. We're looking at a phased approach, and so what we hope you see today with the actual prototype framework is that this can scale in many different directions, whether it's downward with additional graphs and siphoning from real-time software or potentially hardware, which I'll get into in a minute, but also many different slices and dices, because dashboarding is infinite, and this county has so many different assets and stories to tell, so you'll see that in what we're initially proposing. As I just mentioned, it's scalable in many different directions, and again, we're looking for your suggestions and feedback on where else we could take it from what you see today. The other neat thing about this framework and the technology that James and the Office of Innovation and Strategic Initiatives team has put in place is really the future autonomy of this, that this will be siphoned again from existing software systems that our staff is already inputting data into, and then maybe downstream the hardware, the sensors and aspects like, let's say, things on our fleet that can help us start going down to preventative maintenance and aspects of that. The neat thing is that this is mobile enabled, so you'll be able to look at this on your tablets and phones and whatnot. It'll be accessible to you. Right now, though, because a lot of it is internal focus, we're going to be hosting this on SharePoint. And then, as we know, with everything we do, inevitably, of course, facing to the public, it will be ADA compliant as we work with other partners. So the main two crux before we get to the prototype is really this slide. And this is what we're proposing for the framework. Again, I'm seeking your suggestions. This is definitely a work session. But we're looking at a phased approach, as I mentioned. And we put some very rough estimates of when these projects can be rolled out. And I think you'll see that we could be on time for this next quarter for the first phase. When we talk to a lot of the staff, we actually know, and you've probably all seen this, it's a best practice with our OMB office, is that we do collect metrics today across the county. It could be asset numbers, it could be the performance of certain programs. So that's actually put in the budget book. And so we said, well, why don't we build a prototype on elements of that? And so what we're proposing is that the first phase is what we're calling operational dashboards. And so these are around thematic areas of what these disparate metrics across every department would showcase. And we'll show you that in a second. And so you can almost think of this as a living budget book. I will preface this with the first prototype you see is the smallest, lowest hanging fruit to that budget book, which is really us showing you the budgeted revenue streams as just the first wave. I know we worked with Darren, we talked about this, is that we wanted to get your suggestions first before we went crazy and showed you the entire budget, including expenditures and even actuals. So you'll see that in a moment. One of the exciting things, though, is that the technology that's been put in place for the prototype is truly siphoning from J.D. Edwards. So that's what we want to show in future phases, is that when we get to that actuals dashboard, which again will be internal facing, that's being siphoned daily from J.D. Edwards. Again, as you start looking at these different phases with us, we would love this to be, again, for the BCC and the executive team, and obviously for our departments. So that would really be phase one. And again, in a minute, you're going to see the prototype is exclusively showing budgeted revenue streams that are siphoned from J.D. Edwards. And so it's not needed to be updated daily, but you'll see that in a minute, that we can do that. Phase two, which we think we can get to very quickly, we heard a lot of you, especially at the retreat, would be really a customer support, how we support our constituents in important areas like permitting, when they go after 311 tickets. And so we have some early data from our 311 group that we're going to also show into a prototype. Again, love your suggestions on what else you'd like to see there. We know that inevitably this will probably be an off-the-shelf. In other words, we'll have to procure for this particular software. There's quite a few players out in the market that do this across the country, but we want to, potentially show this to you, see if it's of interest to everybody, and then segue that as potentially phase 2. And as you can see there, there's so many different departments that interface with our residents and our constituents that, this is an undertaking. Phase 3, this would be what we call accounting by the numbers, and in your appendix, you're going to see mock-ups of what that could be. This is really us getting a grasp on all of our main assets across the county, different program numbers again. Alan had in emergency management and animal shelter some early prototypes of this with ArcGIS already, so there's some examples of that in the back of the appendix. But really, this is our chance to use this, again, mostly internally, to understand what's throughout the community, but this can or the county, but it can also help us with communications, grant pursuits, et cetera. So for instance, when we were writing the multi-purpose grant program, there were a lot of assets about Parks and Rec that we wanted to put in that grant, but I had to bug Rick and call a bunch of different people to get that data. So it'd be nice to have it all in one quick location. And again, this is really the dashboard that we think would be great to showcase and tell the community. So that's, again, these ArcGIS examples that you see that Alan Shop has already put in place. And again, we would, really ramp this up for all the departments to show what's going on in each department. Phase 4 is what I would call our current trends data. And again, there's mock-ups in the appendix for this, but this could really be current demographic data. There's an example in there where we've been working with the tax collector on business receipts just to see what's the genetic makeup of our businesses so we can make more informed decisions from an economic development standpoint. But this could also be data when we work in concert with the sheriff's office on crime and other pertinent data points around the county. One of the exciting parts of this, which is why we also think we could accelerate this within about 18 months, is that UCF has both undergrad and graduate programs with GIS and public administration students who are willing to use real-world case studies to build these types of maps for us. So we actually have 2 projects this year right now in the hopper that will come out in May that we're really excited to show you. That shows different demographic data as it's overlaid with the digital divide, and then another data set that looks at age and what's the age makeup of our residents across the county at a neighborhood level. Phase 5 would be our key strategic priorities master plan progress. We know this is already happening. We know we presented to you, these KSPs were presented to you on Monday, and so that might be something you prefer that we prioritize sooner. Again, there are off-the-shelf software systems we'd probably want to procure, like Sidewalk and some other programs that people use around the country. And again, this makes it very transparent and easy to share what's happening throughout the county to external audiences as well. So very quickly, when I talked about that first phase, and again, you'll see that the prototype is reflective of this operational concept or goal of maintaining diverse revenue streams. We're only showing you the budgeted today. Again, that's real-time ciphered from J.D. Edwards. You'll see that in a minute when James walks through the prototype. But we know that inevitably we can show you the entire budget book and, like I said, actuals as well. Another categorical goal we would recommend is operational excellence. So this could be inevitably our capital improvement project, maintenance, and I know Public Works already does a good job in using Jacobs and various other dashboards to work through that. This would essentially be perhaps enhancements to that, but there's certainly other areas of the county that we would love to have a dialogue with you about operational excellence and your definition for that. Another area that would be interested in exploring with you all is enhancing quality of life for all residents. This could be a great way to showcase our Parks and Rec assets, how often they're used. People love them. People love living here. I love living here because of them. And then also the workforce aspects and economic development and business aspect side of that. Already looking at the dashboards that Chief Kinley's team is working on, we could talk about maximizing a safe, resilient community. Resilient part also focused on emergency management data points. Providing impeccable service to all our constituents. This would be really that customer support dashboard I was talking about earlier. Data around preserving our county's natural assets. Again, this could be Water Atlas or other ways that we're showcasing how well we are taking care of our natural assets, especially our water natural assets. And then last but not least, this is also in alignment with the KSP of implementing smart growth strategies and working with Rebecca and Jose on what kind of dashboard that could be to reflect to the community. So with that, I'm going to let James present the prototype to you all. And by the way, the prototype link will be in your emails likely by the time you get back to your offices at lunch.
Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, James Carritzos, Chief Information Officer. Good morning, Commissioners. So what we're looking at, we're going to show you, Jeremiah, if you can alt-tab to the actual dashboard, is we've spent the last few months, I think Commissioner Herr mentioned last year, boy, why don't we use Power BI? And I don't think we could have spelled Power BI last year. But over the last few months, we've acquired the product. We've trained within IT, we've partnered with the fire department, we've partnered with OSI, and we've gone from having no infrastructure to building the foundation that allows us now to build what we need, both from a board perspective, from the county manager, from directors. It's going to be a fundamental technology that we have now that we did not have. So real briefly, this is, again, as Andrea mentioned, we're taking the diverse budgeted revenues and showing you what Power BI can do as a dashboard technology. So you see here on it shows the total revenue budgeted for last year, approximately $1.07 billion. The hallmarks of a traditional dashboard is it shows a pie chart or some visualization. It shows a histogram by year. You can select a fund type, and when you select the fund type, it shows you what composes that fund type. It basically filters it, and then when you drill down, it then goes down a step below and provides that information. So in this case, this is looking at the various taxes that are associated. You can continue to drill down as long as the data is in there. Again, as Andrea mentioned, this information is coming from J.D. Edwards. There's an extract that the budget office leverages. We're taking that budget extract, we're now importing it into a database which is tied to the dashboard. This allows for us to ingest large amounts of data relatively quickly. Power BI allows for multiple updates per day, so it's not going to be real time, but it's going to be as real time as the data that we can get. So usually at least every half an hour can be updated. So we've got that opportunity. And so what you're seeing here is, again, when you select an item, it'll focus on that and it'll show you the specifics of the item. If there's any information, we can highlight that and have an informational item for you as well. So that's, I know we want to get to the discussions here, but that's the general gist of what a product like this will do. It will provide you to take information from a source such as J.D. Edwards, which is our enterprise resource system, our financial system that the clerk runs, ingest that data, present it in a format that everyone can leverage very simply. So that's a quick version of it. Do you mind tabbing over? Back, please, Jeremiah. Thank you. So I'll turn it over to Andrea to finish up.
And so one of the areas we wanted to show you is that, for instance, I know some of you have asked me about like our fixed asset sales. If you scroll down further, we'd eventually like to start siphoning from other, disparate software systems we have to start looking at, well, what was sold, who was sold. And you'll see some of that granularity already in there because that is in the budget book from J.D. Edwards. So things like that we can get down to the next level. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so what we really wanted to hear from you all, and again, we know this is a marathon, not a sprint, but we want to talk about those operational dashboard themes. If that's of interest, certainly adding or taking away. We'd love to hear from you about prioritizing those metrics. We can start with the budget book ones. We won't do that today, but we'll get those to you in your offices. And if you want to literally highlight or talk about what else we could look at, certainly are open to that, all the above. And then again, I think the biggest question a lot of everybody's asking is what are those efficiency metrics we could add, or which departments and topical areas of the county are you most interested in seeing dashboards for. So I think that's the last slide that's basically saying the same thing there. So I think we're open to hearing your feedback, please.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, James. Go to the Commission, Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Herr.
Are we further defining A through G, or, I mean, you kind of gave some examples. Can we just call these what they are? I feel like we're trying to name them something to make them sound, like if I'll just say I'm a resident, I happen to be a commissioner, and I don't know what would be in one of these categories. They sound lovely. I feel like we just need to call it what it is. That's where I would start.
I think what I'm hearing is plain language, layman's terms.
I mean, it's enhanced quality of life for all residents. What would be in that?
Right.
Would that be a sidewalk? Because that would be enhancing my quality of life. Would it be where community gardens may be? Would it be where, like, using less water? That's enhancing quality of life. I mean, you could throw everything in enhancing quality of life. Can we, yeah, I just think we're trying to make it something that it doesn't need to be, in my opinion.
Commissioner Herr.
So first of all, when an organization of this size that touches this many things starts a dashboard process, the fact that this is going to be dynamic just cannot be forgotten. This is going to evolve over time. The interesting thing is that on this particular page, I've red penned it to do, I think, exactly what you're asking, which scares me just a little bit. So A, it's just budget.
Yeah.
Right.
B is operational excellence, which can be a lot of things, and they're going to buckle up under there. It's going to be, how do we address phone calls? How long does it take to pick the phone up? How many people are abandoned? All of the things that matter. And some of those are going to be internal, and some of them are going to be external. So we can't confuse those two issues. We may not post a dashboard about how we're answering the phones, because quite honestly, I don't want the public to have to funnel through all that to find what they really need. But we need to know that. You need to know that. So there's going to be a process by which we go through and figure out what is internal, what is external. The fact that we started internal, I had to originally, because I've been saying, we want them posted from the beginning. But starting internal makes all the sense in the universe, because we should be able to start internal, refine it, make sure it's working, and then determine which of those are working dashboards that the team here needs to use, and then externally focused dashboards that are easy to understand, which those two may not be the same thing. And we don't want to be doing things twice, so one should be a product of the other. Otherwise, we're going to bog down the team. There's going to be data discrepancies. We're all going to be sitting up here questioning it and saying, abandon it because it's wrong. We don't want to go down that path. So D is safety. I mean, it's just safety, public safety. E is service to constituents. F is county's natural assets, because the dashboard has nothing to do with preserving them. And the last one is just growth strategies. Because quite honestly, I'm just going to be honest, I'd like this not to become a target of the 3-minute speeches. And I'll just be honest about that. I don't want somebody being able to walk up here and ditch on our dashboards because we're not smart. And we all know that's going to happen, so we should minimize that. I would tell you that I think I see Alan laughing back there. I try to lose New Jersey, Alan, but every now and then it comes back out. I think that our public relations team at some point will have involvement, but we're in the very beginning phases of this, so I think that gets there. The other feat, I'm not done yet. I love dashboards, so be prepared here.
I'm good.
I got it. I might have a note on every page.
I'm good with that.
Under Phase 1 operations, I think we need to add human resources. That gets to your open positions, that gets to turnover within departments, it gets to training within departments, it gets to all of that stuff that creates an operational excellence, but it needs to buckle up under operations. Under Phase 2, permitting, planning, calls for public works, anywhere else where we're facing to a citizen that needs to be reported in terms of timing. And then I think I would throw in with the UCF concept, Crooms Academy. You're buying off-the-shelf software. Those kids can probably start loading stuff up in it, to include giving them jobs to do it. Hire them as temps and let them come in and create that connectivity to that organization that may create future employees for us.
James is smiling. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith is smiling. I think the KSPs are too far out. Q4 of 2025, I feel like I'll be 80 years old by then, and I would like to see it happen sooner. I do think that we need regular reports on where we are with it, and we need access to kind of viewing when staff gets to view, once it's right.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to see the sausage get made. I don't think you want all of us in the process of making the sausage. It would be super ugly. But knowing that it's happening is a great thing. And then we need to know what resources we need, and if we need to be pumping RFPs through the process, or if we can potentially piggyback off of RFPs that have already happened, because I think that can speed up the process considerably.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, a lot of great comments. First of all, I want to thank the staff for starting to roll this out. What's the best way to learn how to run is you got to learn how to crawl first, and this is the first piece of it. And I think the commissioners are spot on by saying, let's look at this internally first. But I think Commissioner Lockhart's correct by making it simple, where whatever words we do use, the public can understand it as well as we can understand it. And it's all about transparency. Each department needs to be somehow represented in this, and you all need to help us to identify what those dashboards are so that it can be a tool for staff. And that's the first aspect of it, as well as a tool for us, as well as a tool for the community. And I think all the comments are spot on. It does need to be updated automatically, but at the same token, SharePoint can also be identifying if there are problems. Their SharePoint can actually be used to identify when things are not getting updated correctly, going to the right manager or director.
Okay.
And I know dashboard SharePoint can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Constantine?
Well, very highly intelligent people who know a lot more about dashboards than I do have already commented and commented well. So all I'm going to say is, good job. Let's get it out as quickly as possible, but let's get it right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart again?
Can I point out an elephant in the room?
Sure. Whatever you want out there.
Okay. So we have been talking about dashboards and using the phrase transparency for quite some time. And it is not lost on me that because we were talking about dashboards in the context of water quality, that because we didn't move in some fashion fast enough for a local news outlet, that somehow we are now not transparent. And so I also want to be having a very clear conversation, and I appreciate the desire for this board to prioritize what happens first, next, last. But as we have these conversations about we are not lacking transparency. We are creating a method by which we can have the transparent data more readily available. Right. All of the information is currently available. It's just not in a pretty clickable, colored website. And I just needed to get that off my chest.
It's a valid point.
I appreciate
It's a really important point.
Commissioner Herr.
I'm sorry. It's a really important point, and I would also add that this creates an efficiency with providing the data that takes the burden off of staff of manual reports, which should change the volume with which the frequency, the volume, et cetera. So I do think that this is conquering a lot of things at one time, but it makes, from my perspective, it makes transparency easier. It makes possibly the output easier to understand. It can make the output dynamic, so you can slide the time frame maybe on something. I don't know, but that's the goal.
Mr. County Manager, you had something you want to add?
Yeah, just And I appreciate you all bringing this up to me when I first got here last year, because this actually really excites me. The staff, I even say when I go and like look at my own insurance or I do stuff, I pull up these dashboards. I was like, this is really cool stuff that you can do. So, but to hit the point that you all had made, we were looking externally first, and as the team and we started working, it's like, the internal stuff is so important to us to ensure that we can manage appropriately and we can provide information to you all. And you hit it on the head. It's in an efficient way. Thank you, Commissioner Lockhart. We're already transparent. Everything is out there. If you want this information, you can get it. It's budget, everything that you can ask for. But to have it in a format that is, say, more customer-friendly, responsive, that's our goal. But for me, on the management team, on the executive team, that's what, for me to make decisions or to, for instance, you're going to be getting the vacancy report coming out this week, the quarterly report. You're going to see some great improvements from when we've started comparing it from year to year to year and compare it quarter to quarter from that particular year. You're going to see, again, see improvements with that. But it is manual, and it's reports after reports. And so, yes, I agree with that. With doing it internally, we can really look to be more efficient on how we operate. So anyway, so I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. Mr. Herr.
Sorry. I also want to throw in that it is not lost on me the amount of progress that we've made in the last, is it 3, 4, 5, 6 months?
Basically 4 months.
4 months. This is 4 months. It sat idle for a very long time while we were interim this and interim that and trying to keep the, water flowing through the pipes and whatever else we were trying to do. Building projects going on, et cetera. And so this had to take a back burner. But I really do think this is going to go, I'm not going to use the word warp speed, quicker than we've seen, because I've been sitting here now for 3 and some years, and in 6 months I've seen more progress than we saw in the entire 3 years before then. So that is a testament to the team and Darren and crew for getting this to be a priority at this point. So I know it's weird to be excited about a dashboard, but this is exciting stuff. This is culture changing for the better.
I'm trying not to repeat what everybody has already said. As many of you know, it can't happen quick enough for me. When I brought this topic up 6 years ago when I arrived here, everybody looked at me like I was growing a third eye. I even actually went out and met with suppliers who supply these dashboards and then I think some of you actually even sat down with them several years ago. But this is really about a clearinghouse scenario, and internally as far as externally. And I'm not going to get down into the weeds of each and every aspect of it, but eventually what I would like us to see as part and parcel of this dashboard is an interactive capability for the public to interact and report certain things, so it automatically gets directed to those departments. These dashboards have endless amounts of assets that can be deployed to remind staff, you're on a deadline, needs to be done. These reminders that automatically pop up, they're intuitive and interactive from the standpoint of allowing us as commissioners or our aides, if we have a question by a constituent, what's going on with a certain project, we should be able to go to that dashboard, look up that project, find out whose office it's in, what the status is, and what's the next move. So we have a feel, instead of us picking up the phone and calling 3 or 4 or 5 different staff members to try to find out. It's going to be a heavy lift at first. That's typical to get it integrated. But once it's integrated, I want to assure all employees trust me. From running private sector, it's a big lift, it's a heavy lift, but once you put that time and effort in, moving forward, it's going to be making your life so easy. It's just getting over that hump. And a lot of that's going to be programmed. And to Commissioner Herr's point is anything we can do to leverage, the young students who are in this space, to bring those in is a win-win for everyone. But I also think we need to look at certain aspects that are already shelf-ready that may expedite this. Some of these over-the-counter are customizable, interfacing, other products interface the two programs. But it's fantastic. It can't happen quick enough. Thank you very much. I can't wait for that day. I hope I'm still around when we get there, so thank you very much. Commissioner Lockhart.
Under Phase 1, for discussion, you were wanting us to prioritize the metrics available. I think I need the list of metrics that are available.
Yep.
If you could provide those to us.
Absolutely.
I'm not as familiar with what are we already collecting
Right.
in order to prioritize them. Then that would help me with knowing what I would want to add, because I don't know what exists. And then I'm skipping ahead, your next slide on recommendations and requested actions. I don't know that you want us to give you suggestions on a format of actual dashboard prototype.
No.
That's not our area of expertise. You've got experts that know what works and what doesn't. That's my thought process.
Sure.
Happy to give you suggestions and preferences for topics, again, once we get that list of what's already existing and then look at what could be added. And then agreeing on which ones should be public-facing. I think once we know, I mean, I'm happy to give input on that. But as far as like what colors and whether it should be, horizontal or vertical, or please don't ask me.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
I agree completely. It needs to be simple. And I think it was already said, I think internally is the first move. And then as that becomes perfected, we start to roll out, the external, and know what we're doing, how we're doing it. We've run a process. And I agree. You definitely don't want to ask me, because I got so many metrics you could track that you would just drive you absolutely batty. I think best practice is what we need to look at. The low-hanging fruit we need to harvest first, build upon that as we go forward. But I agree, and I think several said, I don't know that you want us telling you. I think you need to rely on the industry. These products already exist, and vetting that process. I think what you need us for is funding, when you decide what that ultimately may cost, and you need us for any other direction based on policy or budgetary needs. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner Herr?
Well, and I think there needs to be some level of consistency, which you're creating a data warehouse that's going to pull it all in through Power BI, then the look and feel will be consistent with what you're showing, because the consumer that's using it, it has to be intuitive, and they need to be looking, to the right consistently. So keep all of us out of it, including staff who may want, in my department, I want it this way. We cannot do that to our customers. I do want to pick up on something that you said, Commissioner Zimbauer, though. The lift in the front for employees is significant, possibly. If you're pulling data that's already existing, it may not be. It may actually reduce the workload. But the culture change that's going to happen is that once we launch a dashboard, Sally doesn't get to decide that she's just not going to enter that stuff anymore.
That's right.
She doesn't get to decide that she's not going to enter it until the fourth Tuesday of the month. So work processes have to change, and we have to all be aligned with, from a management perspective, a supervisory perspective, a hiring perspective, that our culture is that we load the data because we report the data to the public, not you load it if you want to, and this department is held to a different level of accountability. That's part of the culture shift. So I don't want you to get hung later for saying this will be easier when somebody's cheese has been moved and they're inputting real time as opposed to on the last day of the month.
No, absolutely. My point was, it is a heavy lift at first, because it is a paradigm shift completely in the workforce. But once you get there, it is much easier.
Yep.
But to the point, another point to that is the delay of putting things in, as you articulated. You don't want to do it today, we'll get to it next week. The benefit of this type of product is there are items that can be set up to trigger time constraints, to advise management when things are not occurring or when reports are due, as well as also alert that employee, hey, in 3 days, this information's got to be entered in. So from a management perspective, it's a real helpful tool if utilized. Often what occurs, because they are customizable, management will desire to go in and turn certain things on and off. That's going to fall upon management as to how you guys ultimately do that for efficiency. But that's what I would hate to see, is we deploy the asset and then all of a sudden we want to start turning things off, so we just get a big group of stuff whenever it arrives. So good stuff. So do you feel you have direction?
Yes.
Great, thank you all very much
Thank you.
for putting that on for us today. And you can stand right there, Ms. Bronner, as you're going to continue on.
Yes.
Number 27, item 2024-0395, Sustainability and Resiliency. This will be Chief Innovation and Strategic Initiatives Officer Andrea Wesser-Bronner and Christian Swenson, Assistant County Manager, and Chad Wilski, Fleet and Facilities Director.
All right, well, good morning again.
Good morning.
So just to set the stage, then we have some other staff that will be coming up here. We understand, with the Hansen report, that I think that kicked off some interest in at least building energy efficiencies and what's happening across the county. And there's been a lot of historical work here in many other areas of sustainability. So talking with Darren, our hope is that we come back to you at least quarterly, maybe more frequently, on all aspects of sustainability. And I think one of you just mentioned crawling versus running. And so this is the first presentation. And what we did since January, we have two new colleagues that joined us. So John Slott, our Chief Technology Officer, and then Paul Tweed, who is our Program Manager in the Office of Innovation and Strategic Initiatives. Both come with a rich history in sustainability, John from the transportation side, and then Paul from working for SCPS as their Building Energy Manager. And in a nutshell, what we wanted to present to you today were ways that we can find potentially cost savings. And so, not the big and new and flashy installations that could happen with sustainability over time in emerging areas of sustainability, but just brass tacks, and start with this as the first phase that we present to you. So there's been a lot of work done, especially with Christian and Chad, and inevitably we can see this work going to Chad's shop, and you're going to see a bit of that in the presentation. So with that, I'll bring John up here.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair.
Floor is
Good morning,
yours.
Commissioners. Thank you, Andrew. And Paul's joining me as well. We'll walk you through the initial phase of this conversation that we'll have over the next couple of quarters. The intent is really to provide you an overarching review of what the county has done in the history around sustainable activities, and then what are some of the potential areas that we will focus on, and then a capstone of where we move from a strategic direction, and then, of course, for you all to provide us direction and the county manager direction on how we would like to carry forward as a county. So as an overview, we're really looking at a couple key areas. Our energy efficiency audit is the thing we're here to talk to you about today. So this was an initial review of all of the utility bills that are directly associated with the county's assets. In addition, we'll talk a little bit about some of the existing sustainability projects we've talked through, as well as some grants and some funding, and then the future program portfolio. And then I think where Andrea was just going, that conversation around really developing a robust strategy that is informed and guided by your intentions as a board, and then executed by the county manager and staff. So really, as a basis, we look at sustainability. Sustainability is really a balance between the environmental, social, and the economic factors. So we want to make sure that, of course, we do things that are environmentally sound, but also fiduciarily responsible. And then we balance that with, of course, some of the things you were just discussing around workforce development. Have we built a new economy for the CDCF and the residents of Seminole County and around the region to find work and enjoyment in our community? to the history here in Seminole County, it was fun being sort of the new guy on the block to really look at, there is quite a long history of sustainable activity here in the county. I think everything from the SERVE program that was done in environmental services to some of the land use adoption and changes that this board has just recently approved, and then a lot of the future development activities like in-the-ground activities around like the landfill development, energy, creating RNG for utility operations. So some very tangible things, some very strategic things, and for some very policy-driven activities. And what we would like to do now is just sort of step into the energy efficiency and audit activities. So that really tactical, let's figure out, where all the assets are and what it looks like. So we looked at our overall region within Seminole County. We have two providers, FP&L, NextEra, and then, of course, Duke. Duke is more on the urban side of the county, and the more rural side is ostensibly the FP&L side. You can see there by roughly, it's about a 67 to 30%, so 70-30% FPL to Duke. So we just wanted to see high level, what is the makeup of both consumption as well as cost, and this is county specific. So looking at the county overall, what is our megawatt consumption by provider, and then what is their total bill, and honestly look at those increases, what are those activities, and as this board is advocating for the county, talking to state, talking to the Public Service Commission, these are numbers that you can utilize. So our county cost year over year, 22 to 23, increased by 13% overall, of which Duke's increase was about 17.5%, and FP&L's increase was about 7.5%. So walking around numbers as you all are speaking at the different levels of government that you engage in. We also looked at the number of bills here at the county. The analysis, believe it or not, there's a lot of bills. 27,000 electric bills. And, both Paul and I did not have gray hair prior to starting to go through all these bills, but they are consolidated in one place, and we can now look at that. So one of the ahas we have is first to collect all the data, aggregate it, figure out, and it takes that analysis to really dig in. So our consumption, and that's one of the next steps, is really looking at what are the ways that we can effectively reduce consumption. And you've seen programs and approved programs like LED upgrades and these types of very tactical activities. In addition, to give you some sort of scale, right now the county specifically, just the county assets are equivalent to over 6,000 homes electricity cost for a year. So we're not a small player. So anything we can do to reduce the costs and improve efficiency and there become a model for the rest of the county and the region would be phenomenal. So we also wanted to drive also to that dashboard activity to really look at, what are the numbers? And these numbers do not include all of the constitutional officers. When you look at vehicles, we know we don't have all of those vehicles, and we're going to work with county staff and the constitutional officers to look at vehicles overall. But currently, these are the ones we know about, and we need to get a little bit better at it. And then you can see 97 buildings, 638 different lights around the county, and then our larger assets like 5 points, like the water treatment plants, cell towers, irrigation. And then as we look at how do we move forward, we really need to, it's a daunting task, but there are tools out there to help with it, is really to just look at all the bills and say, are we being charged at the right rate for this asset? Something as that simple could be a very significant amount. And during the course of this work, we did actually, working with Chad and Christian teams within facilities and our team, we actually found a little over $23,000 worth of rebates that we could apply just in the initial discussion. So this is just part of, I think, your conversation about transparency, visibility. There can only be good things coming out of that activity. So we wanted to give you just a high-level look at each of our providers. So Duke Energy rates, their rates are, what we've noticed is a lot of the actions within Duke are some of those streetlights. So the reason you see some of these very high costs down in the lighting service side is we're hitting the minimum price per light. Those lights don't utilize a lot of power, but we get a minimum charge, so that drives up that cost per megawatt. Those initial findings are the types of things we're getting more educated on, more smart as we learn more about the assets of the county, and then we can develop programs that can help drive efficiency and drive down cost and manage cost, really. On the other side, FP&O, you can see here, same thing. We're going to go after those, what are in each of those rates, and do we have the right things in them? And you'll notice, with the Public Service Commission, their rates are a little less of an increase year over year than on the Duke side. So what we wanted to look at is start to highlight where are those high-cost locations, those assets that are owned by the county, operated by the county. So really we have the top 20 identified now. And the intent here is to really look at what are we doing at these areas to make sort of a big bang change in some of the energy usage. So you can see we have 5 points is throughout this list. We have our water treatment plants are throughout this list. The chillers that you see here, this is actually the old chillers. So we're watching this, the new chillers come online and the phased approach the facilities team took to that to see, okay, is it cheaper? Did we do what we said we were going to do? Is it operating the way it needs to operate? As we look at those types of things, we'll also find out small findings and examples like what we saw at 5 points in the parking garage. During the construction activities, we had a very low energy usage. As soon as it went live, quadruple, right? Hey, that's interesting. Also, in some of our older buildings, we have older buildings as well as our water treatment plants. We don't utilize things like variable speed pumps. So concept here is all we have is, we have on and off. So it's either on or off. There's no modulation, so it can't run at the speed it needs to, and our teams can't adjust that. This building's a great example. Air conditioning is on or off. So
It's on right now.
yeah, so exactly. So we like it on, but where you could. So to the point, these types of enhancements and learnings we've got to employ and look for grant funding as well as other funding sources to be able to pay for these enhancements. In the existing program bucket, there's a lot of work going on. So the work going on right now is, and you mentioned a little bit, is the holistic water plan and those key strategic priorities. We're also focusing on the natural landscape of the land development code that you all have reviewed and are starting to move forward as policy for county manager and staff to operate. We also have the parks and trails educational programs and activities going on. There's a RFP that's now gone out around the sporting facilities at BOMA to be able to make those LED and reduce some of that expense. And then we have some grant allocation coming out of the Department of Energy. It's $287,000 for lighting that we can also do lighting and put sensors here in this building to reduce our energy use so that, when people leave a room, the light turns off and an LED, maybe we replace one LED for 4 lights and save some money on that side too. So lighting design, improvement, as well as energy management. So, and some of the short-term sustainability activities within the existing programs we have is Christian and the team, they've established the Evergreen Fund framework with the Office of Budget Management Budget. We also have some of these energy technologies we're looking at. We're also taking full effort around some of these rebates. I told you about the $20,000. That was the rebate we found on the 5 Points chillers. So that was Tally-ho, really nice job. Chad, Paul, others, just coming together, asking the question. And the fact we were meeting with the FP&L folks and said, well, what happened with that? That question resolved in some savings for the county. So, and we are looking for that check. The next step is the Energy Star rating. So this is a process that can help us both in making sure that we're operating efficiently as well as pursuing grants that require the processes leveled under the Energy Star approach. And then finally, we have the other grant pursuits that this board has approved at the ask of the county manager. Some of these activities you'll see here, the available sustainability resources. We've done quite a few of them. I've articulated a few of these already, but really standardizing some of the processes that we're utilizing to go after some of these energy rebates, as well as some grants and processes to bring funding into the county to do these types of programs, as well operate what we have more efficiently. And very similar to the conversation you all just talked about around the dashboard, is to have that transparency and operate more efficiently. So on the grant side, this board last month just approved the submission of the CPRG, so that was the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. Happy to say that those grants were submitted on time, and thank you to this board and to our community for the letters of support, the letters of endorsement. So it's up there in Washington. We'll see what happens. It is competitive, so we have a landfill solar program under the Tampa application, and then we have the landfill membrane that's for Seminole County that reduces the outgassing and improves the economic engine there. It'll improve methane capture, so hopefully we'll make a little bit more money from a standpoint of the RNG going to FP&L. And then also emergency management is leading a pursuit around the electric vehicle program. So what's the future look like so far? And of course, this board will guide and direct that future, but we wanted to throw out a couple of current activities. We really want to get after some of those policies and standards, procurement, and building specifications and performance measurements around efficient building operations, and really getting after that. One of the critical parts that we now have the ability to do across all the vendors, now that we have all this data together, is we can start looking at the kilowatt hours that we use per square foot. So of our building assets, which ones are running more efficiently than others? Can we set a target? How do we move the needle on those assets, improve costs, and reduce consumption? Then, of course, we need to keep looking at the bills and audit our equipment, like those fans, and see if we can do some variable speed pumps around here. And then finally, we need some focus on this activity. So in the next budget cycle, the intent would be to ask the board's authorization to hire an energy manager for fleet facilities to do this on the regular, to make sure that there's focus on this asset. Finally, we will continue to work through the next phases of the Hansen report and refine that next level of scope. We now have really good relationships built on the relationships of the past with Duke and FP&L, and we'll continue those energy audits with them to make sure that we're understanding our assets. We're going to take the Energy Star auditing approach to some of these buildings and use that as a standardized approach to identifying issues. And finally, at this board's direction, look at building a overall robust countywide sustainability strategy that balances, of course, the environmental, the social workforce, and of course the economic factors, so that we have that overall balanced program. With that, thank you very much. We'd be happy to answer any questions and appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, John, and you made Paul stand there the whole time, just diligently waiting. Very patient, very patient. I'm sure we're going to have some questions. We'll go to the board. For me, this is great news. I would say that previously this has all been managed from what I'll call the swag method of management. We can't make good decisions if you don't have data that is reliable, and this now will give us reliable data. What I want us to make sure that we are careful of is that there is some low-hanging fruit with LED lighting and so on and so forth, but this board has given direction here as of the last meeting that we have an intent to vacate some of these properties eventually and begin our move to 5 points, and county management will be bringing us in the near future proposals for that. So I want to make sure that we're not considering certain things on certain assets that won't get a payback, if we're not here in 5 years. And so we need to make sure we follow and track that very closely. I also find it sometimes problematic from an ROI standpoint. It's great to replace single-phase or single-speed motors and pumps and so forth with variable speed units that cost arguably sometimes 10, 20%, or 20 times more than a single-speed or a two-speed. The payback for that and what that is and the cost of change now. I think we have to approach this from a smart perspective. It's all great to say we're saving power, but if it takes us 20 years to save the amount of power as it does to replace that motor or pump, and also with the understanding the O&M on that pump is higher when it fails 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now. LED lighting the same. I think if you reach out and talk to entities who have been down this track before, it's also imperative that we understand the quality of LEDs that we're looking at, which of course the higher quality is higher cost, and the payback on that, and the cost benefits. So I love all this. I think it's great, but I think a return on investment analogy really needs to be crunched down. But I'm impressed that we've started going down this path. We started this discussion before the 5 points process back in 2018-19, and I'm actually looking for grander things from a sustainability and resiliency standpoint, but we've got to start somewhere, and this is a great start, so thank you all very much. Commissioner Herr, Commissioner Lockhart, Commissioner Constantine, then Commissioner DeLaurie.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want to get out there that we have this document on page 9 that makes it look like the energy prices went up by those percentages, and I'd like clarification on that because I don't think that's the case. So this is the FPL 7.5% increase and 17.5 for Duke. I would imagine we expanded square footage, we expanded usage, we expanded whatever. It's just not what the slide looks like. So let's take some heat off of them.
Absolutely. So the analysis we have right now, initial analysis, is merely the consumption and the total bill.
Right.
And the next step is exactly as you've said, Commissioner, is to take it against that square footage and then look at more efficient activities. So thank you for the clarification. It is a broad brush, right? And we did talk to our partners, Duke and FPL. Duke has stated a lot of their increase that, of course, has gone to the Public Service Commission, has been because of storm remediation. Second part is that they, over the state of Florida, have a more rural population, so therefore FPL gets the benefit of Miami and density. And then finally, Duke does not have the energy mix that FPL does, so the energy generation mix. FPL, for everybody, has 2 nuclear plants, where Duke does not have access to that, so they're just running natural gas. So thank you for that clarification. We're providing the initial numbers, and we'll definitely be working with those partners to make sure that we show them in their appropriate light.
On page 11, there was mention that there's now going to be an audit to make sure that we're paying the right rates on the bills that we're already paying. Did I understand that correctly?
So we will look at the rate structures for each of the meters and the bills that we have, and just make sure that we are in the right rate schedule for each of those assets. So the example would be lighting, the examples.
So you're reading my, like, how is that not being done before
No.
we pay a bill?
So I will tell you what, I really appreciate John and Paul and the team, and Christian and Chad had really hit this one hard. And I'm just going to say this, that we were just, say, putting it on a P card and paying the bills and really not just following up. And so we we were digging deep and
Let me brush the
auditing.
hair on the back of my neck down.
Yes. No, it's seriously. So when we started doing our audits, we found a few things that
Okay.
that we call low-hanging fruit, but stuff that should have been done a long time ago. So anyway, we're addressing that at this point.
Awesome. So if it's happening in one area, then I think we should probably look at other areas, because that's a cultural decision,
Absolutely.
right? Page 20, what is an evergreen fund?
Could I say, it's probably something that someone just.
Is it like an evergreen contract?
So
Those are
what,
awesome.
I will tell you what facilities with Christian and Chad, and working with Tim Jackson, our budget office, it's the consolidation of our utilities, so we all have it in one area, so we can look at it, and it's all coming in one area, so we can monitor it, so it's not sporadically throughout the county. So Tim now has, I don't know who named it the Evergreen Fund, but that was just a term that we used. It's nothing, it's just something that now we can consolidate all of the utilities into one area, that we can monitor it better.
All right,
So
understood.
it's our internal lingo.
It does sound like we established a fund.
No, it's
And-
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
want to propose a get or done fund? You're good, Commissioner Herr?
So, nope, I do have another question. There was, I think on page 21, the establishment of a committee, formulation of a countywide sustainable task force. I'm going to ask what and who.
So that's under development right now. The intent is to do a collaborative approach to the point that Darren's just raised. All of this has been dispersed all over the county for very many years, so we really need to learn all the processes and all the activities going on around overall sustainability activities, as well as things as tactical as energy and utility spend. So when we look at overarching the sustainability plan, we want a task force that can actually focus on that and make sure that we have the internal buy-in as well for the plan. Back to your point, Commissioner, around culture, we need a whole bunch of people out there speaking both fiduciary responsibility as well as environmentally, as well as social.
And so the magic word that I heard there was an internal task force, so we're not establishing a citizens committee that,
No.
right?
Correct.
Not that I don't love citizens committees, but this is a
No,
very
it's-
tactical process, and that will slow this down.
It's internal. What I have been big on this year, I know Mr. Malloy knows this as well, I call them working groups. We we just call it what it is. I love the comment earlier, let's call it what it is. They're working groups, and it is that. It's an internal working group that has representation from the whole county and all the departments internally.
And then I think Commissioner Zembauer made a really good point that the math needs to work, and you picked up on the LED lights and the math needs to work. I can never make the math work on an electric vehicle. I just haven't been able to do that. I think they're cool. I think I'd look good in one, but I can't pull the trigger because I can look just as good or bad in my gas vehicle that doesn't take me 20 years to recover the expense. So unless I drive the one that Commissioner Constantine drives, but I don't think I'd look good in that, so I can't do that.
But have you seen the new one, the hybrid?
I haven't seen the new one.
Oh, it's lovely.
Hybrid is a different discussion,
It is a
though.
different
So that's a different discussion.
what I have,
and-
electric
and that
hybrid.
technology has been out longer. So I just want us not to try to be cool at the expense of the taxpayers. And that goes for all of this. And the same goes for hiring an energy manager. I would imagine they could recoup their salary plus every year, but we probably should know that going into it.
And we're going to discuss that in the budget. So I just ripped off this mic. I used my hands while I talked. We're going to discuss that during the budget work sessions, too.
Yep.
So that'll all be coming back to you.
And that's it.
Great. Commissioner Lockhart.
So I'm going to repeat some things for adding some emphasis. So
Did you just say emphasis?
I did.
Make it fancier.
Because I think that gets attention. When you say something a little off, then they'll remember it, right? Like it's a thing. Anyway, I did pick up on page 10 to Commissioner Herr's initial point about FPL and Duke. We say that our electrical consumption grew by 2.56%, but our cost increase grew by 13.28. So maybe we just want to put those next to each other.
Well, I can address that.
Okay.
It's because the rates were increased. So even though our consumption only grew by 2.5%, the bills, the actual cost of the energy went up 70% from Duke and 7% from FPL. We confirmed those numbers with our partners at FPL and Duke.
Okay.
So it's just that's the delta. So you can see the 15% difference is the delta between cost and usage.
Okay, sounds good. The next page on, I guess it's 11, we talk about buildings and lights and assets, and then there's this inset of cars. So I think what you're trying to do is make a correlation from these assets to vehicles in our fleet. Can you walk me through, like, I don't understand. What's the correlation here?
So we're just looking at the energy sources that we currently have, or the users of a lot of energy. So to the points that I think Commissioner Herr was just stating, is as we look at overall efficiency of all the assets, vehicles in fuel spend quite a bit of money. They have an environmental impact. What's the smart ROI-based way to make a next replacement decision? And that's, the intent is just to say, here are some of the assets that are within this pool, and gain visibility to them. That's all.
If we're laying a predicate for these should become electric vehicles, this is going to be a much longer, more involved conversation than we want to have right now.
No, and that's not the intent.
That's not the intent.
Right.
I'll just
Okay.
save you that conversation. Not happening.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Okay, well, I have that on another slide down here. I just wrote capital N, capital O. I left my WTF stamp upstairs. Page 12, where we're talking about rates for lighting, do we take into account the MSBU's for lighting, street lighting?
No.
So this is completely separate and apart from that? And what made me think that was that on the map on page 14, we identify Sweetwater Cove Boulevard lighting, Wingfield Reserve lighting. Are those not MSBU's?
They are. I should update the map.
Okay. I just noticed that the map didn't match the spreadsheets on 15 and 16. So that was my question about the MSBU's. And then when we get to slide 20, I had a question about the Evergreen Fund. That's what that was on 20.
We'll change that now.
Yeah, I mean, so we're sensitive to words like established. Like, when did we do that? Because we're going, well, we establish funds.
Yeah.
When did we establish a fund,
Yeah.
right? So just for staff who may be newer to the organization and working with this board things with money.
Yeah.
So that was a little red flag. Thank you for catching this task force. Looking at grants on slide 23. Free money always sounds great, but it's not free. There's a cost. There's a cost to staff, there's a cost to implementation, there's a cost to, what capacity does our team have? If we get the grant, I was told the last meeting, if we don't have to accept the grant, if we find that our staff can't implement it and we don't have the capacity, we just won't accept the grant. So then I see on a slide that we're all excited about it and we're going to do it. I have heartburn and concerns that the team members and the staff who are going to be on the receiving end of these grants already have a very full plate, if we're lucky enough to get them. And moving forward, I think there needs to be a lot more involvement of the implementation teams for these wonderful ideas. I'm really concerned about the final bullet on this page, emergency management-led electric vehicle program. So I don't know any person in emergency management in this day and age, after everything we've seen with water versus electric vehicle battery, that emergency management folks are loving the idea of electric vehicles. I can't imagine Chief Kinley asking for an electric fire truck. So can you help me understand how is emergency management leading an electric vehicle program?
We can get you more information on that one, Commissioner, but as I understand the program right now, it is about individuals that have electric vehicles, not county, that live on the coast, that during a hurricane event or something are coming here to Seminole County, staying here, so they need somewhere to charge their vehicles.
We talked about this with Duke.
Yeah.
We talked, I remember this, but come on forward, Alan, and because not everyone may have had the opportunity to be a part of that conversation.
We could put the dogs on a treadmill to generate some electricity for those cars.
This is
Yes, that's where animal services and emergency management comes together. How did you know that?
Squirrels.
That's the way we're working it.
These are evacuees.
Alan Harris, again, Director of Emergency Management. We are looking at ways that we can help to continue individuals moving through Seminole County. We've already worked with FEMA and the state, and this is a major concern for the Central Florida area as folks from Miami, specifically for us, Naples, Fort Myers, moving because they'll be using the I-4 pathway, running out of steam when they get here, running out of battery power, and not being able to continue, and therefore we will need to help them move to whatever their next port is, whether it's out of the state or what. The second area is more people are getting electric vehicles, so we're working with the Seminole County Public School System for the 18 designated emergency shelters to put charging stations there free of cost with an outside vendor doing all the management, the maintenance, and everything. So we're still working on it. It's not ready to come here yet, but that is something that we're working on. So a couple different things we're working on related to EV.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And you can take just a little Honda generator, put it in the trunk of the EV, run an extension cord, and charge the car with gasoline.
Yeah, so, ironically, we are looking at a method that was used in another state with a generator it's a slower type system, but at least to get them to one of those larger platforms where they can charge.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Alan.
Mr. Chairman, just on the same note, I'm not trying to hijack your comments, but Alan, the conversations that you've had with many of us is spot on, but you've also talked to us about Road Ranger, because what the Road Rangers do is they just tow people. And I know that your staff, when you've been briefing us, have been talking about trying to bridge that. What's the update? Is there a quick update on that, or can you provide an update at a later date?
Yeah, and I know why you asked, and I thank you also because you helped connect us with some of those contacts there. They are looking into it.
Okay.
That's all I can say right now, because this is a different organization, but they are looking into it.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing, and then I'll relinquish the the floor here. The energy manager agree, if we're adding new positions, we need to figure out how we're going to pay for them. I'm glad that's going to be a part of the budget process and clearly not an expectation.
Right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Constantine, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And yeah, I do want to clarify that I do have the electric hybrid, and it works out very well. Trust
come
me, to
outside
have
and see
all
it.
sides. And got another electric hybrid. The thing that, I don't want to micromanage this, and you know, I'm just happy that we have focus. There is a focus here that I finally see that I haven't seen before, when a lot of us over the years have suggested that, you know, whether it's low-hanging fruit or whether it's moving forward, we, you know, are really missing out on opportunities to not just, you know, sustainability and protect the environment, but to save money. Literally save money. And I do believe that, if I'm not mistaken, and this has been confirmed before by others, that this is the second biggest expense we have, energy, after you know, people. So to have a program that is focused on finding ways to save that energy dollar, I think, is extremely important and you know, fiscally very wise. So moving forward, not only do you know, do we have like now the focus, but moving forward, I would like to see ensured that every single thing that we build, rent, lease, whatever the case may be, you know, we're looking not only as, you know, location, 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 but also, you know, fiscally responsible sustainability. The best thing that I've seen here, though, is the last dot on the next steps, and that is develop, not establish, develop a robust countywide sustainability strategy. Again, that has to do with focus. That has to do from the top down, and that has to do with whether it's, you know, the most efficient, you know, fleet, whether it's, you know, how we can save money in energy costs, or whether or not we have to have it at 66 degrees, which is what it was when I changed it to 70 just a few seconds ago. All of those things, I think, you know, from the very smallest, you know, piece of information all the way to, you know, what we do with the next buildings and how we make them the most energy efficient. So that's all I'm going to say. You know, focus, robust, and it has to be a cultural thing from the top down.
Mr. Glory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, well done. I think we're going down the right path. On one of your early slides, when it talks about sustainability, and I know you talk about social and economic growth, and I don't need it today, but at some point, I'd like to have better definitions of social and economic growth, because sustainability is a holistic approach. It's not just about energy. Most people think sustainability is focusing on energy. That's a big piece of it, but it has to do with growth and social issues that are out there on how that works holistically with the community. So at a later date, I would love to see your definitions of those topics. I know we're here talking about energy and energy conservation. It's truly, and I commend you putting this after the dashboard presentation, because this is a dashboard. And it's a living dashboard. And I say that because, you know, it talks about all different things when you talk about energy consumption per square foot or power consumption per building. It's a dashboard. You know, SharePoint can identify, and as well as a dashboard, you know, what those issues are that are not being maintained. And I say that because you need to have the right target points. And you need to have professionals, either through Hanson or through your own staff, on what those target points should be so that we can have the right matrix. When you talk about power, and you have a lot of different demand graphs in there, I'm sure at some point you'll talk about load shedding or peak shedding, which is a whole nother aspect of energy conservation. And I'm looking forward to having that conversation. But the targets are going to be very important so that, we're not chasing ourselves for the most effective energy efficient building if the target can't be reached. So the dollar and the rate of return, as you're hearing here today, is very important to us so that we're not putting money into a building that we're going to be leaving in X year, so it's not having the right rate of return. You did talk about Energy Star. A lot of that can be done either internally or through a consultant, and a lot of private firms do that. They pay engineers to do that on a regular basis, and there's money that they can recoup because of that. But at the same token, I bring that up because when we do have new buildings, we should have the proper closeout documents from the engineers that are designing these new buildings or renovating the buildings, so that we have the right closeout documents. They're telling us what the expectation is for the target points. They're telling us when the maintenance should be, and if we're not meeting those target points, then they're judged at a later date if they're coming back designing another building for us. At the same token, you talked about VFDs a number of times. There's many different types of VFDs, and I'm not here to discuss that, but you need to have either Hanson or yourself research what is the right VFD for the right bang for the buck, so that you're not replacing them, because early on, people were putting in VFDs that were failing, spending a lot of money, not recouping what the manufacturers said they would recoup because of stuff that they didn't work through all that. So I just want to make sure that it's not just the design, but it's the standards that we're looking at. It's the maintenance that we're looking at. It's a truly holistic approach. At one point in your conversation, you talked about Duke. Duke does have nuclear reactors. You can go online and find them if you want.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure if anyone's listening to us that represent Duke, we do acknowledge the fact that you do have nuclear reactors, not just in your whole program, but also in the state of Florida. I'm looking for, as we all are, looking for a holistic approach. When it also comes to looking at energy conservation and providing a maintenance, not a maintenance person, but a supervisor, you have to have a monitoring system before you can actually control it. And so there's a lot of different approaches to do all this, and I'm sure that you all will bring back the right approach so that we can make the right decisions, and I look forward to the next step, and I want to thank you all for what you're bringing here today. Good job.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Lockhart, a follow-up?
Commissioner, what's a VFD?
Variable speed drive.
VSD?
No, I said variable, VFD. I didn't say VSD. Variable speed drive.
Okay.
Anything else? I'll try to wrap this up. Thank you all very much for the hard work. And again, it's data that's being gathered that can be actionable. Otherwise, as you probably discovered in your analysis, you probably got halfway through it and said, oh my. How have they been moving forward in this space? One thing I didn't hear, and these are, I have big dreams and try to look into the future, but I would very much like us to find a place that, by example, the landfill could be self-sustaining, self-sufficient. The equipment there could run off the gases that are being retrieved and recovered, at that. I understand we have contractual agreements and so forth. I also didn't hear anything. I did, however, in the previous presentation on telematics. Telematics probably is the single most valuable device that we could deploy in a fleet setting to determine efficiencies of the way these vehicles are being used, but it also has additional benefits for security, safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, employee monitoring, on and on and on. But it also gives us information in the event of there is a accident. We can also prove those things up. But from energy management, if you look at the UPS model, and they always wonder why they only turn one direction. They've already run the efficiencies on how that works. But I also want us to be very deliberate and strategic from the standpoint of there are jurisdictions in close proximity to this one who've spent millions of dollars going down this path of being sustainable and resilient and have never acted upon those. So it's important to me that whatever proposals come to us are tangible, actionable, and make sense financially to deploy those. And I think that's what many of us have said here as well. Agreed?
Yes, I agree. I would add, just to drive the point home, from my perspective, I am not looking for virtue signaling.
Now looking for what?
Virtue signaling.
Okay.
Using words and phrases that ring like we're doing something wonderful for the environment and we're doing something wonderful, all the words that everybody uses in all the bullet points because it makes everybody feel good. I want to actually do it. I don't care what we call it. I don't want to have a bunch of people saying, oh, look at all, let's do the work and not worry about the virtue signaling.
No empty suits. Do you believe you have the direction?
We do. Thank you very much.
You good?
Yep.
Thank you both very much. Paul, again, I'm sorry you had to stand there all this time and only get to speak for a few moments, but I admire your fortitude. Thank you all very much. We will be in recess until 1:30 this afternoon.